Okay, let's dive into this explainer on a truly massive idea based on the work of César Hidalgo. We're going to tackle a huge question. Why is it that our universe, which is supposed to love chaos, somehow allows these incredible pockets of order, everything from life itself to our entire economies, to just blossom and grow?
And this quote from Hidalgo himself really gets to the heart of it. He's saying that information isn't just some little side detail, it's a fundamental ingredient of reality. It's the very thing that keeps the whole cosmos from being just a bland, formless soup. It gives everything shape, structure, and all its amazing complexity.
So to really get why information grows, we have to start with this deep, kind of tragic scientific mystery. It's a paradox that literally haunted one of the greatest physicists of the 19th century.
Yeah, our story kicks off with this brilliant but deeply troubled Austrian physicist, Ludwig Boltzmann. Now, this was a guy who was fighting for the idea that atoms were real when a lot of his colleagues thought they were just, a convenient fantasy. But his biggest struggle was with his own discovery.
See, Boltzmann's math proved what we now call the second law of thermodynamics. Basically, it says that in any closed system, disorder or entropy always increases. Things just fall apart. Order crumbles into randomness. You know how a hot cup of coffee always cools down? It never spontaneously heats itself back up. Well, his math showed the entire universe is on that same one-way street to total chaos.
But here's the thing that drove him crazy. His everyday life screamed the exact opposite. He'd look out his window and see flowers blooming, trees growing from tiny seeds, and all around him a society building more and more complex things. So that was the paradox. In a universe that's supposedly destined for chaos, why is order popping up and growing everywhere we look? This question absolutely tormented him, right to the very end of his life. The key to solving Boltzmann's paradox, well, it begins with completely rethinking a word we use all the time: information. So what is information when a physicist talks about it? You've got to forget about text messages, news reports, or random facts you learn. No, it's something way more fundamental than that.
In this world, information is literally physical order. It's the specific, rare, and super improbable way that atoms are arranged. The pioneer of information theory, Claude Shannon, he pointed out that the meaning we get from something, that's just stuff our brains add on later. The information itself is just the physical structure.
Okay, I know that sounds a little abstract. So let's make it super concrete. Let's compare, say, a high-performance supercar to a pile of scrap metal. Think about it. Both of them are made of pretty much the same atoms, right? Steel, aluminum, carbon fiber, and they weigh the same. But one is worth millions of dollars, and the other is worth, what, a few $100? So why? The value isn't in the stuff itself. It's in the arrangement of that stuff. That incredibly specific, unlikely arrangement, that's the physical information. When a car crashes, you don't destroy the atoms, you destroy the information.
All right, so if the universe, through entropy, is always trying to scramble this precious order, how does it ever get created and actually manage to stick around? The solution to Boltzmann's paradox shows us the universe's secret playbook for building things up.
It turns out the universe has this amazing three-part recipe that lets these little pockets of order, of information, form and survive even while the rest of the universe is marching towards chaos. First, you need a constant flow of energy. Earth isn't some sealed box, right? It's what's called a non-equilibrium system, and it's constantly being blasted with energy from the sun. That flow of energy is what allows order to just pop up. It's just like how a whirlpool, a really ordered structure, forms in the non-equilibrium system of a draining bathtub. Okay, second step. For that order to actually last, it needs a stable place to be stored. Liquids and gases, they're just too chaotic. Solids are the universe's hard drives. And structures like non-periodic crystals, DNA is the ultimate example. They can hang on to these incredibly complex arrangements of information for a really long time, protecting them from entropy's constant attacks. And finally, the third ingredient, computation. And I'm not talking about a silicon chip here. Matter itself has this built-in ability to process information and react. A tree, for example, computes when it's time to grow leaves by processing data about how long the days are getting. This fundamental ability of matter to compute is what lets life build even more complex information. It's just wild.
So, you've got energy, storage, and computation. That's how nature grows information. Now, for the really fun part, let's take that exact same framework and apply it to the world we all live in, our economies.
Every single object we humans create started as an idea, right? an idea in someone's head. A computer, a chair, a pencil, these are all just forms of imagination that we've managed to embed or crystallize into matter. When you look at it this way, all economic activity is just the process of making imagination physical. And this way of thinking lets us see something like international trade in a totally new light. It's not just about money flowing back and forth. It's about the flow of crystallized imagination.
Check this out. Let's look at the trade between Chile and South Korea back in 2012. Chile sold a ton of low-imagination raw materials, like copper, to South Korea. South Korea then turned around and sold a smaller amount of high-imagination products, like cars and electronics, back to Chile. So here's the kicker. While Chile actually had a positive trade balance in dollars, it had a negative imagination balance. It was importing more crystallized imagination than it was exporting.
Okay, so what? Why does this matter? Well, because looking at the world this way completely flips how we think about wealth, progress, and even the simple things we use every single day. Just think about something as totally boring as toothpaste. When you use it, you're not just squeezing some chemical paste out of a tube. You are, believe it or not, tapping into this vast, invisible network of human knowledge.
You don't need to be a chemical engineer or a materials scientist to prevent cavities. The toothpaste does all that for you. It gives you access to the crystallized knowledge of thousands of people. In a way, products are a kind of magic that multiplies our own personal abilities, making every single one of us way more capable. You know, Steve Jobs absolutely nailed this idea. We are constantly using the accumulated crystallized imagination of everyone who came before us. Every tool, every product, it becomes a new platform for the next person's active creation. And all of this leaves us with one last, really big question. If true prosperity isn't really about money, but about our collective power to turn imagination into physical reality, then what on earth should we be imagining and building next?